Sly,
Yeah.
how long we had this? The elephant.
It's been there a little while.
We should make a trunk call.
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And they say the neon lights are bright down Broadway.
Spook.
Yes!
What do you think? I actually didn't get to see the game live because I was at
What game?
the Collingwood Adelaide one, the Memoriam.
We back together and were we?
What? No. We played them.
Is this a retro episode?
No, we played them at the FCG.
The MCG?
Yeah.
Where's that?
It's in Richmond.
Yeah, no, it's good.
So that's it from us.
Yep, thanks for coming.
Yep. Subscribe, like, follow.
We should play in the rain more often, shouldn't we? They're gripping games.
Fucking hell. Yeah, so I didn't actually see the first half, and
I missed the first quarter, so you probably tuned into the wrong episode.
Yeah, and I actually only started seeing it from the third quarter on, and by then people were spoiling it, so I was like, I was going to watch it all like live, but then by that point it was like, okay. So it was interesting rewatching a big chunk of it, knowing the outcome.
Okay.
And not having the nerves and all that. Some interesting, or not interesting, but like Maynard made captain. What do you think about that?
He's done it before. You'll do it again.
No, I really liked it. I said he was really thrilled. And obviously they're rotating it between the leadership group when Moore's out, because Dacos is captain previously.
Who else is in the leadership group?
Nick Dacos. I think Jeremy Howe's there.
Will he ever go? He's never been captain, has he?
Vic Cumberland.
Vic Cumberland? He's never had a go.
No.
So they named a state after him.
Jeff Hayward.
Yeah, no,
he's hopeless.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... And then you had Pendlebury come back, Maynard coming back. I can't remember the other one. Darcy Moore went out to that shoulder injury.
And Schultz was out yet again.
Yeah, it's a concussion, unfortunately. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So we had some sort of reasonable outs, but also reasonable inclusions. Rain probably helped us given their tall forward line.
I actually did think, though, during the game, the way that it ended up playing, you were longing for it to be dry. I think we would have put in a bit more of a cleaner performance, because the way that we carried it at times, that it really probably worked just as much against us as it did Adelaide. But then again, I think, going into this game, my concerns were Thilthorpe, Tex to a certain extent, and Fogg. And I don't think anyone factored in that the Frampton effect that he's having on people.
He was actually surprised, because
Thilthorpe was surprised.
I've always backed him, but he was caught out of position a few times, and they were obviously rotating their tools, so Frampton wasn't always standing the same guy. The thing on the flip side of that, it fucking annoys me that this is the second time Frampton has shown he can hold that position down, and it's taken these guys this long to actually sort of back him in.
No, he's been a revelation in
defence. He did it last year. When Charlie, and this is no offence to Charlie Dan, but he's obviously very inexperienced. When he came in last year, like Charlie Dan just looked immediately out of his depth and just, he hadn't played for 2 years.
And you can't imagine Reef would have done what Frampton's been doing either. No. So
and that's no disrespect to those two, but it's like you went and got Frampton for a plug and play role. You've plugged him in. Even in the Premiership year, he played defensively sometimes. He did a good job. Then in 24, you went with Dean. And then in 25, you started with Reef. Just back this fucking guy in. He can obviously play. He's got pretty good composure. His skills are there. I'm not saying he's going to be a brilliant counter-attacker. But he doesn't really panic under pressure. And he's got some mongrel in him.
No,
why is it taking it so long to default to this?
And the thing is, he commanded that back line with two of the regulars out.
Yeah.
In Moore and Quaynor.
Houston, was he playing? I heard...
Houston, I'll begrudgingly give him an out because he copped a corky in the calf, I think, in the first quarter that we didn't watch. Yeah. Maybe people can put in the comments, tell us what happened, because we're not watching the replay again, are we?
No.
Shall we pause this and go watch the replay?
No.
No. So he was clearly hampered by that. I heard on the radio driving home that he was struggling to move freely and run. They had him on the sideline for a while, and they got him back on. And clearly, I don't think they wanted to bring Lipinski on because it was a bit too early to bring your number one hard man into it.
Fucking hell.
That you were going to persist with and see whether he ran out with it. But I don't think I think just to jump ahead, I'd be surprised if he plays this week because he did look really proppy.
Well, this is prior to the game, so, when I go give her the comments, Steve on Spotify said Houston didn't train today. Apparently he's been playing with injury. So,
is it the calf or is he...
Wait, Steve didn't say. Come on, Steve, what are you doing?
I think it was a lack of intent that he was injured with.
Well, the thing with Steve, we can rebuild him.
We can make him better than he was before.
Faster.
Better, stronger, faster.
Are you concerned, with the defensive 50? So Josh Dacos had a brilliant game.
Oh, he was superb.
He played so cleanly, gathering the ball.
There wasn't even a skerrick of mud on him at the end of the game.
Now, I caught a little bit of the Gold Coast Hawthorn game.
Oh, you watched that game, but you won't watch ours?
All I do is catch bits of games.
Was this the Gold Coast rant?
Yeah.
You invested all this money in this quality sign.
From Tony. But I've heard he turned it over for a bit, but Noble had 1,001 yards gained.
Well, was that in human or Noble yards? Because he's only very small.
I don't know. But I was told he had a number of turnovers, but in replacing Noble with Houston, it's not really a like for like. So Noble got to plan by Markov, and they both just grab the ball and just run like maniacs. And this is not a criticism of Houston. I know he's a different player, but I'm saying that's obviously why they've moved Josh back there to try and get that run out of there. But do you think they're lacking that something in terms of because there's time sort of our transition?
Well, again, you've got a player in Houston who's clearly not settled at the moment.
But he's not a dasher. He's more like a James.
No, but he's like a sniper. His pinpoint position of delivering the ball was meant to be his number one weapon, and I don't think we've really seen any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, his defensive pressure is not high at the moment. Again, I really didn't watch a lot of Port games, so I don't know exactly what it is that I'm missing out on. Maybe this is what he is. If that's the case, I think we should ask for a bit of a refund.
It's just interesting whether they rejig it. Now, you go to Kane or you criticised him. I don't think he was as bad, but Quain, or what did you anticipate when he started playing a few years ago?
I actually thought with his build and everything that he was going to be a mad dasher off the back line. His kicking was pretty good, so I just expected that. But I'm not sure what his role sort of is at the moment. He's not really tall enough to sort of lock down anyone or anything like that. He's an opportunist, I think. He hits a few contests okay, but he's not really doing any damage coming out.
It's actually interesting because when these young guys come up, and you look at them, and I'll give you the example of Brent McCaffrey and Jarrod Blair from, they came up in the 2010 squad. And ultimately, their careers, they weren't dazzlers or anything like that. But when they first showed up, you're going, okay, what's the ceiling for these guys? And I think some of what they could have been was lost in the transition of coaching. But at a certain point, you go, okay, we've seen what you got. That ceiling we anticipated isn't quite there. As something with Kane, I really thought he was going to be this elite defensive rebounder. He's he's not a bad mark, but I thought he'd grab the ball, he'd be a lot more attacking, and he doesn't do it. And he's 6 years in the system, or whatever it is. And this is not to say get rid of him or anything, but just it's is this all you were going to be?
Yeah, look, I think he had a good year in 23. I think last year he bulked up too much. Now, there was the intent to have him playing close or do something or utilise that bulk, but it just didn't work. And he slimmed back down again, but he's just gone south a little bit. He's not damaging in terms of anything. It's just, I think your weight of expectation is rightly probably a little bit higher than what you're getting.
But has he lost... I don't know, nerve. I guess the best... No, he's nerve.
Nothing's happened to him to cause him to lose his nerve.
Keys is out there for Adelaide. No, I don't know. I don't know. Is there something that's happened? Is there... Fuck, I don't know how much to say. Okay, well, under Buckley, there seemed to be an imperative of play safe, not safe, play the team game. And, you used to see it with... It's a criticised side, man. You dash down the wing and stomp and then prop and then kick it backwards. Blair, who, I think had a little bit of... If you look at his highlights in 210, he does take the game on. When he came out, he'd go for a walk, he'd go for a run. He's still playing team-oriented. But under Buckley, he really lost all that. And it was always square it up and all this. And I think, Callum Brown's a really good example. And there's going to be someone out there, no, he was always shit. I actually thought Callum Brown was always going to be a pretty good second string midfielder. He tried to create when he got the ball. He tried to make things happen. But then under Buckley, he just eventually got ground out of him. And I don't know whether something's happened with Quaynor where it's just like, now I'm just too conscious of not fucking up. Or maybe it was even something like seeing what happened with Noble and Markov. It's like, oh, hang on, this guy got supplanted. I don't want to lose my spot. He just seems to be playing really safe to me.
Well, I mean, and that could be what his role is. Yeah, maybe he's taken into the rooms after each game saying, you've done exactly what you wanted us, or we wanted you to do this week.
But do you think that's it?
But wouldn't you think if that was if you're getting that feedback to say that you're doing, perfectly fine, then where do you push higher? You're out there comfortable. You know you're going to get picked. You know you're getting a game every week.
I actually, the McRae template is grab the ball and run and just move it forward. Now, Frampton in the third quarter, I think it was, it could have been the last. I can't remember. It was one of the quarters. So you got 1 out of 4. But he charged forward, he took a chest mark, and he just fucking kept running. And so he was going for a run. Even the commentators go, oh, he's going for a run. And that would seem to be, the mandate there is if you got the opportunity, run, create counter-attack, create chaos, and then we'll thrive in that. Now, Quaynor did it a couple of times. He ran, but it's not really part of his genetic makeup.
He tends to look for an option more than anything, yeah.
And you look at Josh. Josh will always run, and he'll always try and find space, and a lot of players do that. So I just wonder, I don't know what the Quaynor psychology is. I don't know what they expect of him, but I would have thought it should be a bit more counter-attack. If you look at Darcy Moore's 200 centimetres, whatever he is. When he gets the opportunity, he runs. He goes. So I'm not sure why a mid-sized defender isn't doing it as much. So I don't know. Do you think his position is under jeopardy? Because I know there's two schools of thought. I know there are people out there going, no, he's absolutely fine. What are you fucking complaining about? Why do you have a show? That's it. I'm off. I'm going to go watch Swoop Luke. And then there's people who go, I'm totally with these guys.
Well, I know you'd replace him with Markov. You've said that.
No, I'd probably try GF first.
No, well, that's where I'd be going first. But if you were looking for a season campaigner, you'd put Markov in that position. But Jaff, I think, he's showing a fair bit in terms of needing to be picked soon at VFL. So, and he looks like he's he's only been there 2 years, but he's developing that footballer's physique. He came in, he was pencil thin. Now he's looking quite built. And I think you need to be that as a defender. And, as long as it's not hampering his pace, I think he'd be electric coming off the back line.
What about Di Matteo?
Oh, the new inside mid. Can you imagine, being in our system and just being nothing week in, week out, and then you finally put in the position you're good at and you perform in it? Can you imagine that happening?
What a shock of originality.
I don't know. Who would have thought?
Well, talking about that, what about Ed Allen? Where's he sitting right now? And he's only played 7-8 games. So.
No, look...
and none of this is, because one thing I hate is when we criticise players and people going, oh, well, you want to fucking get rid of him, you're too harsh. You can actually examine the player's form and their output.
Look, I think he did a number of good things. There's a number of things that he probably would do differently if he given another opportunity.
Like giving away 50s.
That 50 is a classic example. But the thing is, after 10 games, you got to learn from that moment. And that could be that defining moment where you don't see him do it ever again. Because you got pinged and it was at a crucial time in the game. It got them a goal. You would have, during your review, that's going to be brought up, that particular thing. But it's an opportunity. A lot of these things are an opportunity to learn. And you would think that a player of his ilk wouldn't recreate that same mistake. But each of those moments where he fluffs something or does something a little bit wrong, it's a learning opportunity. He's played 10 games or something. I still look at him, the way he moves and his size, he's needed. And I just think we just keep playing him. We're coming up to a bunch of, probably easier games soon. This is his opportunity to keep getting some consistency into his game. Consistence is futile.
Yeah.
Maybe he can have a couple of little outstanding moments against lesser opposition.
Where's Patrick Lipinski?
I think he was perfectly played in the first 3 quarters.
Yeah, so obviously only played about 15 minutes, but where's his career at?
Jeez, the thing is with Lipinski, he's not a bad user of the ball, but he's so fucking outside, it ain't funny. There was, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, I haven't looked at the replay, but when I was watching the game live, it wasn't long after he was subbed on.
Yeah, on the wing.
He short-stepped 2 contests, I reckon.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the angle of the TV makes it look worse, but he pulled out of both and they ended up working the ball forward and gold. And you think, if you're age and experience, you should be throwing yourself on that like it's a grenade.
Yeah.
Or at least, impacting the contest to stop it, to allow support to come in. But he sort of just, no, close enough.
Well, it's like, there's two things to say, because we talked about McCreary short-stepping something the other week. The one thing I do wonder with people like McCreary, because I don't think that's in his makeup, is the way the AFL are fucking enforcing rules and penalties that a lot of players are going, oh, hang on, I might hit someone in the head and then be out for 2 weeks for fucking just contesting the ball. So I think with some players, they are actually pulling up short because of that. Lipinski, though, is a serial offender. Now, I have no problems with him being outside because you need those players. You need those players who are going to be the linkage and running and all that sort of stuff. But when it's your time to go, you have to go. And I was going to compare it to, it was in the last quarter when Adelaide were coming back. And Perryman did that beautiful fucking diving. He got the endanger. There's about 90 of them a game, but they paid that one, fortunately.
But that's desperation.
But that's what I'm saying, is he dived regardless of, he could have got kicked in the head. He could have taken the guy's legs out, given away a free. There was a lot of potential detriment to that action, but he went because right then that's what that action needed. And it was it's better for me to give this away and stop the play if it is a free, or to get kicked in the head, which will be a free anyway, than me to just stand back, let him take it and move the ball with, total impunity. So this is the problem with Lipinski. He uses the ball well, he runs, but geez, he just needs to be fed so much.
It's a point of frustration because, if you wound back the clock a little bit, when Bobby Hill fucked up our ability to win that game by 5 or 6 goals,
thanks, Bobby,
by going too early, which is fine. I really struggle sometimes with that unrealistic attempt thing because it seems to be, again, like most things, adjudicated strangely. But when the ball landed in, when he appeared, when he took the cloak off and appeared, and everyone just jumped, they took a step back, going, where did this guy come from? That would have put us 5 goals up at that stage. I think that would have broken Adelaide, and we could have then just sort of cruised.
Because they went straight down the other end of the goals.
Well, they kicked the next 2 goals from that point.
But they went straight back then too.
Yeah, and that gave them a sniff, and you could see them visibly lift. And you're going, fuck, I'm sitting here on the couch. I think it was 10 minutes to go at that point when they got the second goal, going, I've gone from fucking relaxing now.
Yeah.
I'm fucking clenching my sphincter muscle like there's no tomorrow coming. And this isn't how I imagined finishing the game off was going to be.
Let me just go back to the Bobby Hill, because I was going to bring him up. That, I think, was
unrealistically?
It was the worst attempt. This is a wet day where it's not really built for fucking go take a high mark over a pack. You're a small forward. Stay fucking down, let him contest it, and then crumb it and kick a goal. Don't go for a mark of the fucking century. And this is the thing with Hill. I actually saw this on one of the message boards. Say, who'd you take out of Leon Davis, Andrew Cracker, and Bobby Hill? With Bobby Hill, I think he's just got to fucking learn. You know what? Sometimes just do the simple stuff. Not every single act has to be a highlight. Yeah. And that's what Leon Davis eventually learned. That's what Andrew Cracker did really well. Bobby Hill, he
did the highlights really well though as well, Cracker.
Yeah.
So did Leon.
And Bobby Hill got that great goal, and I appreciate that's part of his game, but going back to someone like Cyril Rioli, I think Cyril Rioli was great because he knew when to go and when to just go, no, just lay it up. Peter Dacos is great because of that too. The great players know, okay, this is when it needs something special, and this is when it just fucking needs to be just meat and potatoes, and just do what's simple. And right then, in the wet, on a shit day where it's not really built for fucking high marks, and he might have taken it, someone goes, he might have taken it, yeah, but the percentages were he wasn't going to take that because those marks weren't being fucking taken. Just stay down, wait for the crumbs, and rove it. As it was, I don't think the guy he jumped on was going to get anywhere near it. It was going to be one of those ones where they all misjudged it, and it did just fall into Hoskin Elliott's hands. So, play your role. Your role is the small forward right there. And it's not like I know someone out there will go, well, he took Mark of the Year against North Melbourne, indoors at fucking Etihad, where there's no rain, there's no wind, it's just perfectly still. So, fine, go for it at fucking that time. That was just one to just stay down. And that's, with Hill, he's had some good games, but I actually think he's not in the game enough for long enough. It's sort of he pops in, he'll do his little celebrations that are really becoming grandiose, and then you just won't see him for a while. And, you mentioned it previously where after the grand final you thought, okay, where are you going next? I don't really think he's improved that much in 2023. I think his form's been... And I think the thing with him, we're talking about, what's his ceiling? This guy could be anything, but he just sort of seems to float in and out of games. I know that's part of the small forward, that's part of what happens being a small forward, but...
Unless you're Jamie Elliott.
Yeah, well, how good's Elliott been?
Oh, it's superb. But I guess that comes with experience. Again, it's a learning opportunity for Hill.
Yeah, but he won the North Smith in 2023.
Yeah,
Played most of the games last year.
Yeah, no, look, it's a little bit, yeah. But anyway.
Ned Long. So 23 pressure acts, I think it was.
Yeah, what was his numbers? Because the thing is, like, even with Nick, I thought Nick had a really quiet game, but stat-wise, he was quite involved. He had a lot of score involvements and stuff. I think it's a hard game to gauge when these games are a slog, because you've got so many guys fumbling around the ball and everything that you tend to sort of see some of the passages overlap, if that makes sense. That something that just bursts out is the result of a couple of quick in chains in close that you don't really see because there's 20 people over the ball.
Yeah, so Long got 19 possessions, 6 kicks, 13 handballs, and I actually like that breakdown because he's the guy inside the packs. I want him to be feeding it out.
Yeah.
And 9 tackles. So he helped, or he was part of chains of a couple of goals. His pressure acts, like I saw it in the Instagram Collingwood account where they said he had 22, 23 pressure acts or something like that, which is insane. And obviously that's a big part of why he's being pushed so hard. But for those conditions, I like... So there's a guy who sort of knows his role and he plays to that role. So you talk about Nick. What's wrong with Nick? Because the thing I was really watching is his tackling. His tackling's always been relatively good. He seems to be struggling to hold people. So if there's a pec injury that might be hamstringing him, whatever, but I just don't think he's right at all this year.
The funny thing is, like, he was having his hip and stuff worked on.
That is funny.
Last week, wasn't it?
Yep.
And then there was reports from the first day of training for the week, and he was moving beautifully. So whatever it was, he's moved on from it pretty quick. But there must be something else that he's carrying that we don't know about that is hampering that.
You see sometimes when you run
the side of his game.
When he runs really hard, you go, okay, that's him, but he's not doing it all the time. And it seems weird to me that it's like Dane Swan's strength was just run. So you can tag him, but he's just going to run, and he's going to outdo you. But Nick doesn't seem to have that ability at the moment. For a lot of this year,
he's getting a fair bit of attention at the same time. But conversely, though, it means that other people around him have to step up, which is what we've been crying for as well. I think when we've lost games, it's because it's the Nick Dacos show that he's doing too much or trying to do too much. But I don't mind him sort of taking a few steps back for the betterment of the team for the others to lift around him. You look at I'm pretty certain I'm right here, but in the last quarter you had the starting 4 of Ned Long, Sullivan, McCreary, and one other, I can't recall who it was off the top.
Vic Cumberland.
It was Vic Cumberland. You're looking at that going, well, geez, you pulled a lot of experience out of that midfield there, and at that time I think Sullivan fell on his back and got a clearance, which went straight to Adelaide. But still, it was a clearance, something we weren't doing particularly well again. So
centre clearances are 9-12 in their favour, and stoppage clearances are 20-27 in their favour.
20-27?
Yeah.
It's not as big a gulf as I thought.
I thought it was going to be bigger. I thought it was going to be 25 or 6-4.
Because they did mention during the the commentary that we were being smashed in the clearances, which is what it looked like on TV. But they weren't.
It felt like those.
They weren't scoring from those the advantage that Adelaide had. I think a lot of the time the defence is just standing up so well. Because this is now 2 weeks in a row where we're smashing clearances, but the opposition haven't scored against us.
So ultimately it's 29-39 in clearances in their favour, but inside 50s was 47-55, also in their favour.
Yeah, so the defence is doing a great job.
So I was going to say...
you wouldn't want to rely on that, but you'd want to win the ball
Is that a concern that they're... against Geelong in that first half we monstered them and then they started getting over the top of us. But is that a concern that that's something we're losing? Because you look at games earlier in the year, you had Sidebottom playing elite, you had Ned Long having some really good clearance games, but it seems to have dropped off. Now, the thing with Long is in the first 5 games of the year, I'm sure other clubs are going, oh, who the fuck's Ned Long? But as he's started to become effective, other clubs are going, okay, now we have to start paying attention. So he's getting more attention. So his numbers have actually lowered a little bit. But Side bottom's numbers have lowered a little bit. He's played more on the wing this game. Nick's numbers have obviously lowered. So is that a concern that they're losing that midfield?
Oh, definitely. Because you look at the way Footscray Bulldogs destroyed Essendon last night. Their midfield's borderline. Their dominance was elite.
Yeah.
And winning that first use of the ball and getting clearances it's something that's always going to work in your advantage. And at the moment we seem to be setting up on the counter far more than we are with winning.
And the thing with the counter is with Houston not being as effective as a counter attacker, and they're relying a lot on Josh to just run the ball out of there. So they've also lost some transition coming out of counter-attack.
But you see McCreary going in, I think, has balanced that out a little bit because his attack and ability to clear is pretty good.
Well, I was going to ask, though, now, is this a concern or is this McRae, the coach, trying to find some added dimensions to that midfield by throwing guys in like Sullivan?
You're never going to rely on Pendlebury and Sidebottom for the next 10 years. You've got to start mixing it up. And it looks like he is mixing it up to see what's working and what's not working. So do you think,
but the point is, like, do you think he's sacrificing some stoppage clearances to see what's going to work for him?
Well, but yeah, I think that's inevitable. That's going to be the outcome. So yeah, I'd probably say yes.
Love Darcy Cameron as a ruckman around the ground, but he's not the greatest tap ruckman. Is that also a concern too?
Oh, look, I think Coxie was pretty average, but big men in those conditions rarely fire. Again, it was just a case of him dropping marks, but I think they stand out because it's Coxie. But everyone was pretty much spilling a lot of marks in that game. It is a concern though with the age of Cox and that sort of thing that if Cameron went down tomorrow, and you're going to rely on Cox as your number one tab. But there's nobody really coming through in the wings. Steen
and the other guy, Leroy Schmidt.
From what I read on some of the boards and stuff, that there's some question marks on Steen's performances against AFL quality ruckman. He tends to dominate over the Ballant type rucks and stuff. And Ilero I've really not heard too much about or seen too much of, so it's hard to comment, but it sort of feels like you got your eggs in two baskets at the moment. Because, you obviously we're out without McStay. Frampton is doing such a fucking bang-up job in defence. You don't want him doing pinch-hit ruck at the same time or become prominent ruck because it's we don't have anyone to come in and fill in for him. You'd have to roll the dice on someone else. One of those two, obviously. But, it's starting to feel like it's a bit of a concern because, like, Darcy's, 30? And Coxie's he's about 48 now.
Yeah.
It's you don't want either of them to be injured and you want them to see out the year, but it's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't know. Cameron's really blossomed, but he is 30. So who knows how long players are going to play?
It's that adage about the big men don't slow down, they stop.
Yeah,
it tend to come true.
When players tend to be, we talked about this a little while ago, that players they are playing longer. They're playing further into their 30s. Cox always has the advantage that he's always going to be 7 foot tall, but you can't expect him really to be carrying the ruck. They've always treated him as a part-time ruck also. I don't know about the other two, Steen and Schmidt. I don't know how they're being really used in the VFL. It's my concern more is, and I think I watched I watched some of another game. I watched the Sydney Carlton game. I actually watched all of that.
That was part of the comedy festival, wasn't it?
And Grundy still does the thing of when they wrestle him, he just decides he's going to wrestle, and it's like, mate, they were doing this to you fucking 6 years ago. Learn a new strategy. It still hasn't clicked to you.
Let the Wookiee win.
But this is like Cameron also falls into that trap of wrestling, and it's just like maybe you need to start developing. I don't know. Maybe he's getting the instruction. Wrestle and.
I think for everything that Cameron does in the ruck, he makes up for it 1,000 times around the ground.
Yeah, I mentioned to you, I think, in the messages that I was saying. De Koning from Carlton was ranked 13th for taps in the league, but second for taps to advantage. And you think, well, fuck, imagine having that sort of weapon where, and imagine how much that's going to mitigate your midfield issues, if someone's just putting it straight down the midfield front. Now, on the flip side, I understand that Carlton's got a pretty good midfield, so they're probably making that look a little bit better too. But it is my concern when Cameron gets wrestled away, and the way the game's played now, I think we're still pretty vulnerable on the counter, because the amount of times they go forward, and our defence does a really great job, but just it's like you're really exposed on the other side, going the other way, or the option going forward. And I wish there was a way that we could actually look at addressing that. My check. Glad to have him back.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, that's enough of that then.
Yeah, I mean, really, the thing is, like, he didn't do a heap, but he does apply pressure when he runs up the ground. But, yeah, it's those crucial goals that he kicks, like that one that he kicked, I think it was at the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, you kicked like 50
it for about 50 in the wet. That's that's a rocker-like effort. And you go, that's where he's really Mr. Reliable, and you love him doing those sorts of things. I think at his age and stuff, this is what he's going to be now. He's not going to tear too many games apart, but he's just going to bob up when he's required and do what's needed.
So we talked a little bit about it before. You were talking about like it was going to be a relaxing game and it turned into an arm wrestle. How frustrating is that? Because I felt exactly the same. I went from like, hey, cool, I don't have to stress, to now got to stress. And although Collingwood's always got this sort of calmness about, whenever teams are coming at them, Adelaide had their chances. So I think it's almost a false economy, because I think if Adelaide just kicked straight, or a little bit smarter, a little bit wiser, that could have been a lot worse.
Sort of Rankin, like any other week, he would have kicked 7 against us, but he kicked a couple out in the full. There was a few of the times that Adelaide kicked it out in the full, and whether that's a little bit of pressure or whether it's just the conditions were shit and the ball slews off your boot and all that sort of thing. But yeah, we were lucky in some respects to get away with that win in the end. I think we absorbed the pressure quite well. But it was frustrating. I think the frustrating is, like what I said earlier, is we shouldn't have been in that position.
No.
I think we controlled enough of that game in those conditions. We were happy to play the flanks and force stoppages.
God, sausages.
I don't know where the fuck that came from.
If sure.
What? Was he like sausages?
No, I remember you was talking about a story when we played Melbourne, and like all the defenders were together, and he said something like, what I tried to say was, we got to get clearance from the stoppages, but he said something like, we got to get clearances from the sausages. It was something like
that. Great, I'm stealing someone else's material. This is awesome.
I think he's got all Australian jumpers too.
It was clearly that sort of game that was like, no one wanted to go through the middle all that often. I think it was clearly the stoppage type of game where you just controlled and held the ball in your territory for as long as you can. Adelaide seemed to be quite happy playing that game as well. I did say in the message that I'd be interested in the final quarter whether it looked like one side wanted to break free and go bananas. I thought we started the last quarter at a frenetic pace, but I think once we got up to that point where we thought, well, 5 goals, we'll probably control it from here. 5 goals required to be kicked. We'll control it from here, but we probably didn't give Adelaide enough kudos for once they got a sniff, they really knuckled down.
On the flip side is the problem that we decided to just play tempo there and just play defensively when maybe McRae just says just go all out. I don't know what the strategy was. But I felt one of these ones, we are, 4 goals up. Now let's just control the tempo, rather than just saying, well, 4 goals up, let's make it 6 goals. Then let's make it 7.
Well, I think that's, look, again, if the Hoskin-Elliott mark was allowed, I think that's how it probably would have panned out. I think Adelaide probably would have just flown the flag at that point. They may have gotten 1 or 2 later on in the game, but we would have been probably well in control and would have held on. Stress-free supporting. I don't think they think about us when we're out there, though. No. When they're out there, though.
Any final thoughts about this game?
No, look, I think there's an overall feeling that, I don't think we're playing superb football or anything yet, and we don't really need to. But everybody's throwing, their best at us at each week, and we're absorbing a lot of that pressure, and we're just doing enough to win. This is our 9th win against Adelaide, and
9 out of the last 10.
Most of them are generally by a kick or 2. So we stuck to the script at the end of that game. But Adelaide's a good side. I was actually impressed with the way that they were playing. I'll make no mistake. I thought they played well in the showdown the previous week, and so did Port, which is why I tipped Port this week. The fuckhead. Jesus Christ. Yeah, you wouldn't back up on a good performance, would you?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think they're a good side. And a lot of the sides we've faced so far have been good sides, and we've weathered the storm in all but two. And I can't even really count the first one because I think GWS were fucking up for that game.
Yeah.
It was hot and all that sort of thing. GWS have been shit out since then. It's really only probably Geelong that pushed us, and it was a game again I think we probably should have won.
Yeah, I'll just say last thoughts about that game. Congratulations to Jack Crisp, who broke the consecutive games record.
Are you doing this every week?
Yeah.
Was he cheered off this week?
Did some research. Talking about the fixture. Kane Cornes says we have it easy because of the back end of our draw. Someone on Facebook, so Robert Coulson, his name was, what was it in Fight Club?
Robert Poulsen?
Poulsen?
I don't know.
Anyway, Robert Coulson, if Collingwood were 4 wins, 5 losses, this conversation wouldn't be happening. Exactly right. Cornes the drop kick. Fast to mention we had the 5th hardest draw at the start of the season, so we're 7-2 because we played well, but are now in an enviable position as a consequence. Those are good work of Fly and all the assistant coaches and support staff. Cornes can cry a bucket of tears for all I care. He's an oxygen thief. Go Pies.
Yeah, I mean, we had a fucking hard draw. We've travelled, 3/4, technically 4 times, because everyone else did for gather round, but I'm counting it. Then you look at the farce of fucking Carlton playing. They finished above us in the ladder. They're playing West Coast
Twice
and North back to back twice, and they're doing it later in the season. They played Richmond already.
Yeah,
They played none of these fucking sides.
I think Dorska was telling me that they play West Coast second time before we play them once.
Fuck. But no, you're right, Corns. You've done your research. I should take a leaf out of his book and not do research.
I'll just point out too that what you said also, that although everyone travelled to Gather Round, we travelled from there to then
up to Queensland.
Yeah,
yep.
So we sort of did a double trip. If I can just find it. So Johnny Ayres, not even halfway through the season, plus we had a bye and we've been resting players. Are any other clubs doing this? Because it seems odd. But Hawthorn did it against Gold Coast. So they rested Gunston, and I can't remember who the other one they rested was.
Yeah, I think
Don Scott didn't play.
I think we said from the outset as a club that we were going to be managing a lot of players. So I don't think we're doing anything out of the norm other than we're getting certain players to a point where they were probably due to be rotated. There's probably a roster system there. There's probably a spreadsheet that explains it all. I think we're doing exactly as we intended to do. The only probably time that we deviate is when there's injuries, and you may ask someone to play an extra week or two.
I was just going to say though, because Hawthorn did it also, and I think that's an indictment on the AFL because of their fixturing. So Hawthorn was coming off a 5-day break going up to Gold Coast or Darwin to play Gold Coast, and they're forcing Hawthorn to go, well, we have to take care of players. I don't understand how fucking hard it must be to fixture 6-day breaks at the very least for the clubs, and actually to sort of fixture in, hey, we're not going to get you to travel on a 5-day break. You can play at home the following week after a 5-day break. I understand that they got fucking some software that goes back to the VIC-20 computer that they use for the fixturing.
Load.
Yeah. But get fucking... It's like your goal line technology for the cameras.
Oh, do we have one?
Yeah, the fucking... that's another VIC-20 software. It's like... Surely you can get someone to make a better software at fixturing, a season. And I understand there's compromises because there's different grounds and all that sort of shit, but some of it, surely it could just accommodate some common sense.
No, it's driven so much by TV. It's like having this floating fixture that you don't lock in until you want to get the blockbuster games on Thursday and Friday nights.
I think the other thing, though, is what are you trying to accomplish, AFL? So I understand you want to promote Gold Coast. I understand you want to promote GWS, and you want to give them exposure. But it's time to face facts. North Melbourne is a failed franchise. Just disband it. St Kilda's the same thing. You tried for 100 years. Good on you, but it's not working.
No.
Get rid of it.
No one would notice.
The Melbourne Football Club, do they still need to be around?
No.
So they just get rid of it.
They've got more players than supporters.
John Elliott was right, fucking 30 years ago where he was going, they need to make a Super League and lift the criteria so it just kills clubs. He was actually right. We'll actually say in terms of the resting players, going back to 2006, when Nathan Buckley was about 32 or something. In 2003 on the Brown line, in 4 and 5 he had all his hamstring injuries and missed half the year, both years. In 2006 they played him as a forward, but they actually did rest him a couple of times during the year. So Malthouse was doing it back then to take care of an older body. Robert Toohill, umpires are crap. Cameron Headnock, Dacus high fend off, no free. So this is the Fremantle game.
fucking umpiring across the board is cactus. Yeah, there was two things that stood out in the game against Adelaide. The one that really shit you was the one where Keys is standing on the fucking goal line, takes a step backwards, and you look at the camera view, we're about fucking 7-8 metres away. Yeah. No one's in the square. And they've just gone, yep, it's a point. Yeah. That's a fucking free every day of the week.
Well, if you're going to have that free, that's
and then you got stupid moments like the ball fucking coming in, bouncing off Sidey's chest, hitting his head, going into Rankin's arms, and they call the mark. And then to go like even today, there was footage in the Richmond North game, I think it was. Some guys kicked out. The ball's been smothered. The smothered ball's travelled over the line, and they've called insufficient intent. And you go, fuck. The thing is, like, at my son's football game today, there was a couple of real bad calls. But there's one guy out there that's 16 years old. He's got a fucking excuse. There's 4 highly paid umpires standing around the contest that's meant to stop this inability to see, and they don't fucking do it. Even in the Adelaide game, the one thing I think Adelaide had a right to be upset about was I think the McCreary tackle that was paid holding the ball, and whoever that little suck was with the moustache actually handballed the ball out.
Yeah,
it wasn't a throw, but it was called a throw. And it goes both ways. We get benefit, they get benefit. But I think the thing is, all games each week, the standard of umpiring is atrocious at the moment.
Go back to the Carlton-Sydney game, Carlton was pinged twice for insufficient intent. There was one time, I think, Cripps just tried to soccer the ball forward, and it went out, and they paid insufficient intent. And then I think it was Charlie Curnow tried to tap it forward. I might have get it confused, but something like that. And again, it went out of bounds, but he was trying to tap it to his advantage. And both times the umpires paid insufficient intent. And Matthew is just going, well, and I agree with him, if you're going to have this rule, just pay last man touches. It's a free.
Well, it's at that point, because I think it even happened in our game too, where Mircek was contesting the ball. When you're running at full pace and you're paddling the ball in front, and look, your opponent either stops you from taking possession or you've hit it too hard, that you've got to look at those instances and think, well, you're trying to keep the ball alive. Yeah. Their intent was not to push it over the boundary line. That's just an outcome. Well, and you've got to look at it and adjudicate those fairly, not just fucking make these ridiculous statements because the ball goes over because you didn't do enough work to keep it in. What could you have possibly have done?
Well, this is Matthew Richardson's going. They need to apply some common sense. The Carlton's down at that point. Would Cripps and Curnow really want the ball out of bounds? They're trying to keep it alive. And, there's a lot of times where it happens where I think someone just tries to soccer it away from a contest or soccer to their advantage, but there's the boundary. And the boundary there is like a happenstance of fucking whatever the action was. And it goes over just because, well, hang on, that wasn't the intent. It was just like when they try to get some distance, the boundary just happened to be there. But it wasn't the intention to fucking send it over. That rule's so broken. You just pay it like last person touches it.
I think, the holding the ball rule's more broken. The holding the ball at the moment is being adjudicated like you're phasing it out. That they won't be holding the ball in a couple of years' time. That you can be tackled, the ball can fucking just spill free, whichever way you get rid of it, and it'll always just be play on.
The biggest problem, go back to the ruck rules when they have the ruck wrestling, and then the umpire blows the whistle. And I've always said this, the umpire blows the whistle, and everyone just goes, okay, which way's going to... No one knows. Commentators don't know, the players don't know, the fans don't know. It's a farce that you have a rule that's that ambiguous that nobody knows what the outcome's meant to be. Because generally in the rule, if I jump in your back, then it's going to be like, everyone knows, he's blown the whistle, it's going to be in the back. And the AFL just kept stonewalling this until we all accept, now it's a novelty, and all the commentators laugh and all that. It shouldn't be a novelty. You should be held accountable for the fact you have a fucking broken rule that no one knows the outcome because the umpires are operating on some criteria that no one understands. And this is becoming more and more prevalent. The taking the legs out, well, sometimes it's paid and sometimes it's too high. Which one is it? I don't fucking know. I really don't fucking know. And there's a lot of these rules. Insufficient intent. Oh, well, sometimes it's paid, sometimes it's not. It's bizarre. And then going back to the umpires, because actually round this back to the Schultz concussion, the Fremantle. This shows you how fucking broken the AFL is, that the umpires, when they released the audio, the umpires clearly saw it. Now, why they didn't stop it, like Eddie Maguire was making the point of footy classified, well, the umpires made a decision, well, look, it's fine, the play's not there, let's just go for it. And look, maybe that was a mistake, but we went with that decision. But the AFL just fucking said, oh, well, the umpires didn't have vision of it. And then they've released the audio and the AFL's going, oh, well, it seems they've lied to us, pretty much, is what they've said. How fuck are you being run as an organisation if this Something that should have been solved in like 30 minutes has gone a week and created headlines.
Yeah, if there's one thing politics has taught us forever is that lying is not an acceptable way of getting out of a situation.
Yeah, it's. I mean, what do you think of the Schultz one too? Because he was clearly knocked out. He lifted his hand. He looked totally fucking.
The fact that he was prone on the ground and bloody the arms, it's never a good look when they're knocked unconscious. That right away is stop play because you don't know how badly injured he is.
Yeah, I was a bit worried. We lifted his hand. There was a security key on the end of it. In joke. No, and they're like saying, the play, like the AFL was originally saying, the play wasn't there. It's like Nick Dacos basically kicked right over him. The fucking play wasn't there.
I mean, they were handballing to him on the ground. I mean, the umpires were poking him with a stick. I mean, how much more obvious does it need to be?
I'm not going to go there.
I saw an undertaker digging a hole next to him. I mean, come on.
Michael Cara 1238. Pendlebury always kills me. Who's that on, me or you?
I don't know. What do you say it now? How do you say
Pendlebury.
Pendlebury. Do I say Pendlebury?
I don't know.
I thought I said Pendlebury. It must be you, Pendlebury.
Pendlebury.
Why don't you have a line of breakfast cereal called Pendleberries?
That would be a good idea. Yeah. David Hatley, great episode, gents.
What would he know?
Disappointed, however, there was no representation from the Bear. Well, he's right there, and he's so shocked he put headphones on. Johnny Ayres, not even halfway through the season, plus we've had a bye and we've been resting players. Oh, sorry, I've actually already read that. Digsby 7134, Huskin had been the fan favourite, but he's to lead the young fellas in the VFL. Mate, you were done. Well, it's a little bit harsh on us.
we could have told you years ago we were done.
Yeah. Claudia Lebel. One could wonder whether it's possible that the AFL and the umpires have some kind of bias. Is the head actually sacrosanct? No free, no response, no care. Do you think they have bias? I mean, I actually, I think if I was an umpire, I know I'd probably screw Carlton over.
You're wearing the blind man sunglasses.
Yeah, I'd probably screw Carlton over just because I've hated them for years.
I would,
and not consciously. I'd wait until the grand final to do it consciously. But until then, I'd be the most, pristine umpire out. No, but do you think they could have bias? Because I used to have this conversation.
I've heard stories of umpires saying in closed conversations that they have a bend against particular teams.
Yeah, I've heard that too. So it's... And it doesn't have to be like a totally conscious bias. But, because we used to have this conversation with Repo, man, and he would always say, I know, well, they're professionals. Why would they be biased? And it's like, well, cops are professionals and you still get corrupt ones. You still get judges who are corrupt, so just because people are professionals doesn't mean they can't be corrupted. True. Or they can't have an agenda. Costa Veslos, Pierce off, Jack Gibbs on.
Pierce off, Jack Gibbs on.
Playing North Melbourne, yeah, it's a joke from the 12th man. Playing North Melbourne this week, what changes would you make?
The venue?
Fucking Marvel. You know what I hate about Marvel too? Our members are getting screwed on the seating for an away game.
Why doesn't the club do anything about it?
Yes. We should ring the CEO.
I'm glad, and this is stupid to say, I'm glad that North won today.
So am I.
Because I don't know why they bother me, but the fact that they overran us and nearly killed us last year, clearly different side out there. I think at that point of the year we had a lot of injuries and we're coming into the bye and all that sort of thing.
Why would they go into the bye?
But they'll take that. That'd certainly be talked about, wouldn't it? This week, if you were Clarkson, you'd be saying, "Remember what we did to them last year?" But don't remember what they did back to us.
On the flip side, yeah, I was going to say, surely McRae would also be telling him, "Remember what they did to you last time? Don't let that get to that point." If you're McRae, you'd be saying, look, when they've been when they've been dominated by good sides, they've just squashed them, so let's not turn it into a fucking scrap.
I think you can't take anything for granted. We've been coming off so many good sides that once you get into that mindset of it's only North, that's when those sides tend to find a reason to be better that day. And most of these sides treat playing us as their grand final. GWS have done it once already this year. I wouldn't be super fearful. I wouldn't take it for granted that it's a gimme win either. I don't know how well we play. How often do we win it?
No, we win regularly.
We do all right?
Yeah.
Because I know Hardwick hates it. He hates going there. Has McRae said anything about it? He goes, I don't like it.
About hating Hardwick.
Yeah.
No, they work
Yeah,
together.
he hates Hardwick going there.
Yeah.
I think we'll win.
Any changes?
Changes. I don't think we'll see Houston out there. More, do you reckon they'd bring him back? Depends on how he is. I think we all thought he was going to be permanently deaf in that ear, and he came back and had an impact the following week.
Yeah.
Schultz was going to be out for another week, won't he?
Oh, well, his
Did we work out what the duration of this is?
12 days.
Is it 12 days, 2 games?
12 days. So he'll be available. He's outside of protocols, but just whether he's come up or not. Is it just out of the side? Is there a concern? Because he's had a few concussions. And I worry with the players who sort of get them repeatedly that they are more vulnerable to them, you know. And you look at like Nathan Murphy, he had a few, and you're sort of going, yeah, this is a guy. And like Will Pekoski for cricket, Angus Brayshaw for Melbourne, and they're just susceptible to concussions for whatever reason. You know, Paddy McCartan. So is there a concern there with Schultz? And Schultz does play pretty tenaciously.
Head over the ball, yeah.
So...
as long as he's not feeling any ill effects away from those instances at the moment, I mean, nothing's been said. I think anything like you get repetitively hit that way, that it's going to have a detrimental effect over time. But you know, hopefully with him,
but some people seem to be a lot more susceptible to concussions.
Hopefully he's not feeling any ill effects or anything at the moment.
No,
Because like Murphy often spoke about that he'd start getting longer with the recoveries and have dwindling.
I think as Liam Picken was talking about, like he couldn't handle bright lights and.
Well, Liam Picken couldn't.
Liam Picken, because he was another one concussion. So, in terms of like the recovery, they struggle with loud noises and bright lights and shit like that. So, and obviously the health's paramount. But in terms of the selfish side of it, like football, you want these guys out there for as long as possible.
Absolutely.
So, any concerns in that regard, do you think?
Not at the moment. It's too early, I think. But yeah, we'll watch that space. Hopefully, it doesn't happen all that often because at the moment we need him out there.
Hey, you weren't saying that last year.
No, we needed him out of there. You wouldn't have saying.
I didn't. Anyway, your tip?
Collingwood by 67 points.
Is that your serious tip, or is that?
Oh no, I'm fucking around. Collingwood by 87 points.
I'll say. Collingwood by 34 points. What I actually hope will happen is, because of what happened last year, we just actually come out and we just control the game from the beginning. Yeah. You know, as you said, maybe winning was their grand final. Brisbane lost to Melbourne, so we're back on top.
That's it, back on top in June.
Yep.
I say that's life.
So, going forward, we're in pretty good shape. You know, at the start of the year, what are we, 8-2 now?
We said all this going into the bye last year.
Yeah, but I mean, going into the bye last year, they never really looked like they were falling into a lot of games.
Yeah. No, at the moment, I think we're travelling nicely.
Yeah, the rotations, but they really can't afford to. There's a couple of players there. Darcy Moore's one. I think Pendles is another one. That they really can't afford to have injuries too long term.
Well, the go is your main concern, but you just got to get him right for finals.
Yeah. So, final thoughts?
You got any sunscreen? Because I think I'm getting a suntan.
Oh. Anyway, that's it from us. Subscribe, like, follow, leave comments, share us with friends. Because, we had an actually interesting conversation last week for a change. We were saying, look, we were the very first ones to do this, to do a Collingwood podcast.
I know. Was anyone ahead of us that anyone out there knows of?
Yeah, because
we started at the start of 2018.
Yeah.
And we've got the same 3 people watching us since then. We've done well. We're growing.
Well, that's 4 people.
Mm.
Yeah, well, we've won a flag since then. Would you take that?
I'd take it.
Yeah, okay. And we lost the grand final. Would you take that?
I wouldn't take that. Take it and stick it up your clacker. Well, don't. Turts will work with that one.
All right, that's it from us.
And that's it from him.
Ooh, later. It's not as easy as you think, is it?
No, I missed everything.
Okay. Later.
See ya.